Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we're here with our first guest this morning, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, and you know him. He's on the national stage. He's Executive Director for the American Constitutional Rights Union, and he's running for office to be the chairman of the Dallas County GOP. So welcome back, Colonel West. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you, Veronica, and it's good to be back with you and the listening audience there in Northwest Panhandle of Florida.
Well, it's, a busy time of year, and the first thing I want to mention is that I'm so happy your new grandson, Levi, a.k.a. Ranger, is thriving, and so I know what a blessing to welcome your second grandson, and, he had a rough go, the little man, but he's doing well, so tell me about that real fast.
Yeah. Well, it's just want to thank everyone for their prayers. He was born at 29 weeks, and he was only 3 pounds, 2.5 ounces, but I was just with him for a good deal of time yesterday, and he is almost 8 pounds now. And, from October the 12th to where he is now, it's just been a blessing, and it was great to have him for his first Christmas in our home. So just again, thanks everyone for their prayers.
Well, that's blessings. I wanted to start off because I think the hottest issue right now, Colonel West, is our border. I think they had a record-breaking day the other day with 15,000 illegals coming through. It's nonstop chaos. How can we stop this? We're being overrun, and I'm sure half of them are terrorists coming through.
Yeah, it's a good portion of it. And, when you hear these estimation numbers of, gotaways, 1 million, 1.5 million, whatever, I always tell people to put that into perspective that you have allowed more people into this country that you don't know who they are, where they are, than we have as far as our active duty strength of the Army and the Marine Corps combined. So that lets you know the threat that we have to our national security and our domestic security right here. But when you look at this Biden administration, this is a complete violation of the Constitution, complete violation of the rule of law. And look, I know Hunter Biden is not a good guy, and everybody wants to show that Joe Biden's corrupt. This is what we should be impeaching Joe Biden on, is undermining the sovereignty of the United States of America intentionally and purposefully, and lying to the American people about it, and trying to, shift blame and all of this. So you're looking at a drug trafficking crisis with the fentanyl that has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. You're looking at a human and sex trafficking crisis. And now, Veronica, we know that we have a health crisis because we have tuberculosis, we have syphilis, we have all of these other diseases that are coming to this country because these are individuals, they're not told to get a shot. They're not checked for vaccines or anything. They're just released into our country. And so I will tell you, I'm not very happy with our Texas Governor, Greg Abbott, and what he's doing on the border. And this whole thing is a political stunt to put people on buses and planes and, send them to, sanctuary cities. Send them back across the border. That should be the thing that everyone should be seeking to do.
Well, and that brings us to the upcoming 2024 election. I feel like this is the election of our lifetime. And, I wanted your thoughts on Trump. They keep trying, now Maine, it's just a kabuki theater that now the Maine election lady has kicked him off the ballot. Colorado has 2. I mean, this is ridiculous. When are we going to embrace that Trump is the candidate, move on, and let the voters choose our next president?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you always hear the left talk about undermining democracy and all of these things. They're the ones that are undermining our sovereignty. They're the ones that are undermining our constitutional republic. They're the ones that are violating our rule of law. They're the ones that are undermining our representative democracy. Not only are they allowing all of these, millions of illegals to come into our country, I mean, they're talking about allowing them to vote in local elections, which means they're going to try to get them to vote in national elections. And so when you look at these bureaucrats, these unelected, or elected individuals, but still a Secretary of State should not be making a decision about a GOP candidate. And the Supreme Court out in Colorado misusing Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to try to say that Donald Trump was an insurrectionist. Number one, he hasn't been charged with that. Number two, no one in even the January 6th people, none of these individuals have been charged with insurrection. So it's just a word that the left has come up with and thrown around. And last time I checked, Donald Trump has never taken up arms against the United States of America or violated his constitutional oath to the United States of America, which is what the Section 3 of Amendment 14, 14th Amendment, was all about. If there's anybody that has violated their oath to the Constitution, it's Joe Biden.
So true.
Colonel, this is co-host John Sack. I was just curious, what is your opinion of this situation we have where things are bad all right? We have the situation with the immigration, and it just doesn't seem the outrage by the citizens are there, to force the administration into doing something. I mean, and I watched this past week, I think it was in Chicago, they had a city council meeting, and the people were getting up there and complaining that the illegal immigrants, the illegal aliens is what they really are, we're getting all these benefits, and they weren't getting their share of the benefits. I mean, is that what our society has come down to?
Well, I think that you're going to see a greater backlash when you have, blacks, Hispanics, Asians all across the country in these urban centers, like you said, Chicago or New York or elsewhere, that are standing up and speaking out against this, illegals being brought into their neighborhoods and communities. That's going to have a political effect and ramification. But that's why I just can't understand why the left thinks that they can just, push this and bully the American people into, this open borders agenda. And then furthermore, when you hear about, funds being shifted away from our veterans, the VA administration, over to support illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, that again is something that the American people are not going to tolerate. Then on top of that, you look and see what's happening on the streets while these pro-Hamas sympathizers and demonstrators who, were wrecking Christmas, trying to cancel Christmas, things of this nature here in the United States of America, and the left continues to try to protect them. They're setting themselves up for a political disaster in 2024. And I know they try to suppress the news. They have a media that is complicit and trying to enable their ideological agenda. But I think the American people are going to rise up and say, we don't want this. And the folks here in Texas are definitely livid. You go down to talk to ranchers along the border, they're livid.
Well, I don't even know how you all are dealing with all of these people, Colonel West. How is Texas handling this? I mean, it just seems like it's just too many illegals, and there's no way we can handle this. And,
Well, no, and it's amazing, as you drive around. I'm up here in Dallas County, Dallas area, and you're starting to see it. I mean, when you look out on the corners and in the medians of major intersections, and you see these young Hispanic women with their children, either on their backs or on their front packs or standing there selling flowers, that's trafficking. And the cartels have put them out there to sell these flowers to try to, earn their keep. So it's right in our faces. And here in Dallas, we're one of the top cities in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking. So this is a big concern, and I think that more people are going to awaken to it, and they want to see it resolved.
Well, I want to...
It's an interesting comment, Colonel West, because I was up in New York City a couple of weeks ago, and I saw the exact same thing while we were driving through New York City with all these people out, slow traffic, of course, it's New York City traffic. And here you have all these people out there selling flowers and bread and all kinds of stuff that I'd never seen before,
Yep, that's what it is. And so, it's one of those things. If you see something, say something. And I wish more citizens, law enforcement should go over and, take these young women and say, bring them in and talk to them, saying, where are you from, who trafficked you, and let's start pulling apart this network that we have. And I think that we're not serious about going after cartels. We know who these people are. We know where their bank accounts are. We know where they live, and we got to start peeling the onion back on them.
So true.
Do you think it's going to get to the point where we're going to close the border? I mean, is that the pendulum's going to swing the other way at some point? And is it going to end up being where we go back to a closed border like we have historically had in this country?
Well, I think without a doubt you have to secure the border, and I believe that you have to have tighter controls at your points of entry. But without a doubt, in between your points of entry, you should not have people pouring across the border. I mean, that's just wrong. But the thing is that you either have to have some type of physical barrier or obstacle, or you have to have boots on the ground that preclude that from happening. And right now, we're not doing an effective job of either. This is not about putting more Border Patrol agents out there. This is about a policy that has rendered the Border Patrol irrelevant. ICE is not going out and doing what they're supposed to do, which is deporting individuals, and they've been told not to. The recent report has come out that the Biden administration has the lowest number of deportations than many of the previous administrations nearly put together.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Colonel West, do you feel like President Biden and Secretary Blinken are tying Netanyahu's hands in Israel? I mean, I feel like it's been, since all of this, they've been meddling, and Israel needs to take these people out. And part two of that question is, why do you think Americans are so naive? My children live in New York City, and at Thanksgiving, I endured 3 of these Hamas protest when I was just trying to run around and enjoy my Thanksgiving. And it's just such naivete on behalf of these American, students, people. So I wonder your thoughts on that.
Well, first question answer is yes. There is no doubt that, President Biden, Blinken, Secretary of Defense Austin, all of them are going over there to try to put the kibosh on Israel. They are fighting against an Islamic terrorist organization whose charter, whose reason for existence is to eradicate, eliminate, and annihilate the Jewish people and the modern-day nation-state of Israel. So you can't coexist with those folks. You can't live with those folks. And look, 2005, when Ariel Sharon made the decision that Israel will pull out of Gaza, what has happened since 2005? It was a year or two later that Hamas came in, and they were the governing authority. Hamas is a derivative of the Muslim Brotherhood. And, for an administration like the Biden administration to do everything to kowtow to Iran, they're the reason. The Biden administration is the reason why Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, the number one sponsor of Islamic terrorism, has been, refurbished, repurposed, and rearmed and refitted, because they have opened up the oil revenues and the royalties thereof, because we're not enforcing the sanctions. They have sent them billions of dollars, just the same as the Obama administration did with palletized cash. And so you look at that and the propaganda that is out there. That's the reason why we have all of this anti-Semitism. You look at those Ivy League presidents that testified there before the House committee. This is why these young people out there basically stuck on stupid. People have forgotten Leon Klinghoffer. Leon Klinghoffer, the wheelchair-bound American that was shot and his body thrown into the Mediterranean Sea in his wheelchair off the Achille Lauro cruise ship by who? Palestinian terrorists. We forgot 40 years ago that Hezbollah killed some 254 Marine soldiers and sailors in the Beirut barracks bombing. And how nutty it is that you have people going out supporting an Islamic terrorist organization in New York City, where it wasn't too long ago when the Islamic terrorist organization flew airplanes into the Twin Towers there.
So true.
It's interesting that speaking of it's not just the Israelis and Hamas. It's, U.S. troops are being attacked over there. I think it's been over 100 attacks, in the past couple of months.
106.
And we've actually had U.S. service people injured. I think one of them was critically injured a couple of days ago. And our response is nothing. We shoot a $1 million cruise missile to blow up an empty building. That may be our response.
Blow up a warehouse. Yeah, and think about it. Before Christmas, you had the leader of the Houthis go on, TV and, is you a threat against the United States of America? That would not happen if a Donald Trump was in office, because some people in the world only respect strength and might. And right now they see weakness, and not just weakness, but abject weakness. And that is enticing, that is emboldening them. And so, we know where these launch sites are that the Houthis are using. Every one of them should be bombed to oblivion. We should not allow, Iran to be able to transit back and forth with material support and resources. We should be freezing their oil revenues. We should be tough on their sanctions. When Donald Trump was in office, we had squeezed Iran so hard that Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, these guys were out there with lemonade stands and cookie sales trying to raise money because it had just dried up. But now, the Biden administration has opened up the floodgates. So, number one, if you want to undermine Islamic jihadism and terrorism and Russia and what they're doing, make us once again energy independent, maybe energy dominant, because that is a key resource that leads to your national security. But again, this administration is undermining our energy policy and energy security.
Well, I wanted to also ask you, with this anti-Semitism stuff, why has Harvard not taken out Dr. Gay, the president, now with the plagiarism? And, there's stories out there saying Obama's called people to keep her, in her position. Yeah. And once again, it's a DEI issue. I'm a Hispanic, you're African American. Yep. We bring our A game to everything we do. We don't plagiarize. And why is this woman still there with a $50 billion endowment? She needs to go. I'm so embarrassed for Harvard.
Well, this is what DEI does. DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, says that it's not about standards, it's about identity politics. And, Barack Obama out there calling, saying you need to keep her in place. Well, that just shows you that if it weren't for not having any standards at all, Democrats would not be able to spell the word standard. And so this complete disregard for ethics and morals and values and our rule of law, this is what the Democrat Party has become. And I think that if Republicans want to be successful, they've got to go on the offense, and they've got to, expose them for who they are, and they got to be relentless, and they have to be ruthless in doing so, because, that's who we are. Barack Obama is the guy who said that you should never take a knife to a gunfight. Well, that's their mentality, by any means necessary. And so on our side, people need to go out and read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, because that's how they operate. That's how they roll. And if you don't understand their playbook, if you don't understand their mentality, and you don't understand what drives them, you're not going to be successful. And so we need to have fighters. And, that's the people here in Dallas County came to me and asked me if I'd consider running to be the chairman of the Republican Party here in Dallas County, because here we are in Texas now, and in the county of Dallas, there are no elected countywide Republicans. I want people to understand that wow. Texas says is this great red state, but yet here in Dallas County, not a single Republican in a countywide office. And oh, by the way, going into 2024, 75% of the countywide elections in this election cycle are unopposed. 73% of the judicial elections in Dallas County are unopposed. So this is what the left is doing, even in red states. They're coming in, taking over the major urban population centers, and defeating us.
Well, it's interesting because here in Florida, even Miami-Dade is starting to turn red from it was been solidly blue for a long time. One of the things about the DEI I wanted to ask you about was Texas has a law that takes effect, on the 1st of January about closing DEI offices at the colleges. Yeah. And in one of our stack of stuff stories we have is talking about how the Texas Public University is planning to work around that office and take all those DEI staff and rename them something else. It's sort of like the Common Core education system there. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, we're just going to change the name of it to something else, and we're not going to call it Common Core anymore. So we're, it's just how insidious these people are.
Yeah, and it's all cultural Marxism. That's what we should call it. And so University of Texas San Antonio is one of the schools that they just came out and said that this whole staff, they're going to keep it, but they're just going to rename it. And so, again, I think what you have to do is just cut off the funding. Just Texas A&M University, which everyone thought is a very strong conservative school, they just hired a DEI advocate and a former Obama administration official as its president.
Wow.
Texas A&M University.
Oh, no.
I already know that the university. Oh no, the University of Texas Austin. I mean, everyone calls Austin, Texas, Moscow on the Colorado River, because it's beyond socialist down in Austin, Texas. I mean, so this is what's happening in Texas, and this is the playbook of the left. And so we have got to, where we have Republican leadership in governor's mansions and things of this nature, we've got to put the hammer down on these things, and we've got to stop providing, the taxpayer benefits. And who cares if they file lawsuits? Governor Abbott says that we're going to start arresting illegals. You don't need to arrest them and charge them with a misdemeanor. Just collect them up and send them back across the border. That's the bottom line. And if the Biden administration wants to file a lawsuit, tell them you can file lawsuits all day long. But we're going to continue to send people back across the Rio Grande River into Mexico. We don't care what the president of Mexico says, because America is a sovereign nation. Texas is a sovereign state.
Well, on that note, I wanted to ask you, have we not given Ukraine enough money at this point, Colonel West?
Yeah, look, you've got to have some type of accountability. And it's really hard to say to the American people, we're going to send billions upon billions of dollars to Ukraine, but we're not going to protect our own border. We're going to allow anybody to come across our border, to include terrorists, but yet we're going to try to do something to protect Ukraine. And this false thing about we have to do it or else we send a message to Russia, if you just restore our energy independence, that sends a message to Russia. And I think that the other European nations need to step up to the plate. And the number one thing that Ukraine needs, and I'll say this very plainly, even from being a soldier, they need to be able to control their airspace. If they cannot control their airspace, it doesn't matter how many billions of dollars you send them. There should not be Russian jets flying over Ukrainian airspace. There should not be, these artillery systems that are able to occupy ground there in Ukraine and fire upon Ukrainian towns, drones, and all of these things. So that's the number one thing that they need. And they asked for MiG fighters, and this administration said no. So, they don't need F-16s. They asked for MiG fighters, something they're used to. So let's get them those MiG fighters. And let's have an accountability and an audit for all the money that we sent them before we send them another dime.
So true.
Colonel West, one of the things I'm really, you're a soldier and you've been in war. The thing about Ukraine that gets me is we're not fighting. We're not trying to help the Ukrainians win. We're trying to help them fight to a stalemate. And we just give them a little bit of stuff, just enough to keep them going, but we won't give them the stuff to overwhelm the enemy, which is how you win wars. Yeah. And why is that? What's the thinking behind it? Do you have any idea?
Well, I think the Biden administration is caught in a little catch-22. I think that there's a lot of nefarious business ties between, Hunter, Joe, and whomever to Ukraine, and I think that they just want to continue to have the money that is flowing into there instead of, like you say, having a decisive action, which is what you should want to do. For me, that means providing them the aerial supremacy and the means by which they can achieve that. So this administration makes no sense in anything: economic policy, energy policy, foreign policy, national security policy, border policy, domestic security, nothing. They make no sense whatsoever. They're ideologues, they're progressives, socialists, Marxists, borderline communists. And I think that what they're trying to do is without a doubt, create a situation of chaos all across the globe. And now Xi Jinping has told Joe Biden, I want Taiwan, and that's part of China, and no one's going to tell us that we can't. So that's the next thing that will sometime this year pop on the radar screen.
Well, we only have a couple minutes left, Colonel West. When is your actual election for that chairman position?
Yeah, the election is the first Tuesday in March.
Okay.
That's March the 5th. The early voting starts the 20th of February, and I'll be on the ballot here in Dallas County as running as the chairperson here for the Republican Party. And again, we have got to start turning things around in these major urban population centers, and we cannot exist in a red state and in a city in an area like Dallas, in this metroplex, which is in the top 10 in the country, and you don't have an elected countywide Republican. That's unconscionable.
That's so true. Well, I also want to let everyone know you will be back in Panama City February 22nd, and you are the guest speaker for the Warrior Beach Retreat, and we host 12 combat veterans with their spouses, and it's a huge event. There's a parade. I'll be driving you in the parade with F-35s flying over. Hopefully I don't crash, but we'll have some air power, and the whole world will come out to hear you, Colonel West, as you give back to these warriors that have, given so much for our nation and our country. So it's been such a pleasure. I want to wish you a happy new year, and we will see you soon.
Happy New Year, y'all. I'm looking forward to it. And please, y'all, come out and support those who are willing to make the last full measure of devotion for us to have our rights, freedoms, and liberties. So we'll see you in Panama City Beach.
All right. God bless. We'll be right back.